All right, I wanted to review the quiz on two-way tables with you guys, and we kind of ran out yesterday in the Google Hangout. So let's just go through the quiz questions really quick. There was only 6 of them. So number one, how many teammates does Sasha have? Altogether, you just had to add these numbers up. You should have got 10. What's the relative frequency of teammates that are in both Sasha's classes to all her teammates? So the only ones that are in both her classes, math and English, is 4 out of 10, which is 40%. Of the teammates in her math class, so that's just this part, what percentage is higher? The percentage of teammates in her English? Well, there's only 1 in her English. I'm sorry, there's 4 in her English that are in her math class, or the percentage is not in her English, so there's only 1. So I would say for this one, part C, you would have wanted to put English. Okay. Number 2 was a question about allowance, doing chores, not doing chores, getting allowance, and not getting allowance. How many total students do chores? So do chores, you would have done 13 plus 3, and got 16. What's the relative frequency of students that do chores and get an allowance? So do chores and get an allowance, that's 13. To the number of students that do chores. Well, how many students do chores? 13 out of 16, which comes out to 81.25%. And part C, what is the relative frequency of students that do not do chores nor get an allowance? So don't do chores or get an allowance is 4. To the total number of students. Well, the total number of students altogether here was 25. So the percent there I got was 16%. Number 3 on the quiz. Whoa, this printed out huge. What is the relative frequency of students that studied independently for more than 2 hours to the number of students that studied independently? So the number of students that studied independently is 4 plus 12, so it's 16 altogether. And then it wants to know what's the relative frequency that studied more than 2 hours. So 4 out of 16 is 0.25. So the answer for this one was C. Moving on with the quiz number 4. The answer you can see was B. Let's look at why. What is the relative frequency of left-handed people who prefer comedies to all the people that prefer comedies? So we're just looking here. Left-handed people that prefer comedies is 35. To all the people that prefer comedies is 305 if you add these two numbers. So the answer I was looking for was B. Number 5. What is the percent of 7th graders in favor of wearing school uniforms? So in favor of school uniforms. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. Percent. Okay, let me read that again. What is to the nearest tenth percent? What is the percent of just 7th graders in favor of wearing a school uniform? So that's what I did. I did 48 out of 112. 48 were in favor out of 112 total. And I got 42.9%. And then the last question. Sorry for the small printout here. I'll try to go through this quickly so this video doesn't last too much longer. In part A, how many 7th graders responded to the survey? So 7th graders that responded, 16 plus 34 is 50. Part B, what is the relative frequency of 7th graders who prefer to get their news from the internet? 7th graders that wanted their news from the internet is 16 to all the 7th graders, okay? To all the 7th graders surveyed. So that's 16 out of 50, which reduces to 32%. Part C, what's the relative frequency of 8th graders that obtain their news from the internet? 8th graders that get their news from the internet is 10 out of how many 8th graders altogether? 25, which is 40%. And the last question, is there evidence that the 8th graders prefer to get their news from the internet more than the 7th graders do? Well, we just learned that 8th graders, 40% want it from the internet. So 8th is 40%. If you look in 7th grade, we just saw it was 32%. So that's higher. So the answer is yes, there is that evidence that that is clear. So take a moment to watch this video so you know the answers on how you did with the quiz. I didn't get a chance to look at everybody's and provide you with your what you got right and wrong, but this should give you good feedback as to how you did with the quiz.